Are we ready? Yes. Welcome everyone to the Township Committee Workshop Agenda Meeting for this Tuesday, February 10th. The meeting is called to order at 7:01. Mr. LeConte, has adequate notice been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given in the Chatham Courier and Morris County Daily Record on January 7th, 2026. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 7th, 2026. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 7th, 2026.
Okay, thank you. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Alperowitz?
Here.
Mr. Choi?
Here.
Mrs. Ewald?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McHugh?
Here.
And Mayor Ewald. Mayor Rowland.
Here.
Field Division, we have our whole committee.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Alperowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Choi?
Yes.
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McHugh?
Yes.
And Mayor Rowland.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, welcome back to the public session. We will now open the first hearing of citizens.
We want flag salute?
What? A flag salute. Pardon me. Please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so.
We can do.
So maybe the guidance, members of the public are now welcome to come up to the microphone to address the Township Committee. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. Those present may step up to the microphone to be heard. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during any of the public comment sessions by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you're recognized to speak, please mind the following procedures. Please say your name, spell your last name, and give the name of your street. You do not need to give your street number. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, the Township Committee will wait until you finish speaking before responding. There are 2 public comment sessions on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment of up to 3 minutes during each public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today, which we did not receive any, but if we had, they would be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full according to the guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services.
Thank you, Mr. LeConte. Were there any questions submitted in advance, or is there anyone online?
We did not receive any in advance, and we have a couple hands raised. The first one I saw was Aaron Burgo. Mrs. Burgo, you're good to go.
Thanks, Greg. Aaron Burgo, Burgo, Candace Lane. At the January 27th, 2026 Township Committee meeting, the committee added and approved Resolution 2026-059, authorizing YMCA Colony Pool Services Agreement, even though it was not on the published public agenda. The Colony Pool Advisory Committee, which I chair, was not engaged in any capacity in this effort, nor even aware that the township was planning this major change. In response, the advisory committee met, developed a list of 12 statements and 12 questions focused on basic operational fundamentals important to all members and all township residents, and sent it to our committee liaison on Sunday, February 1st. About 8 days later, the township administrator replied to our email, but confirmed or denied none of the statements and answered none of the questions. The duties and responsibilities of the Colony Pool Club Advisory Committee are to advise and assist the Township Administrator and the Colony Pool Club Manager on recreational and social activities associated with the Colony Pool Club. One statement asked the Township to confirm or deny whether long-standing beloved member events, such as live music, 4th of July fun and games, family float day, and tween night, would remain part of the colony experience. A follow-up question asked who would bear financial responsibility for these events, the Township or the YMCA? The Township's refusal to respond prevents our committee from fulfilling its duties. Just last week, the Rosewood Band, who has played at the Colony Pool for over a decade, reached out to confirm dates. I was unable to respond. How can the Colony Pool member experience, to quote the administrator, remain the same if the advisory committee lacks the direction needed to plan and book events that define it? How can we expect, to quote the mayor, most everything will stay the same when basic questions such as, should we expect club hours to remain the same and will the Whibbit be back, remain unanswered? The resolution and agreement were drafted behind closed doors almost entirely by people who do not use the pool. While our questions go unaddressed, the township's response confirms only that the transition to the YMCA management proceeds without any involvement from the advisory committee or other Colony members. I encourage all township residents, whether you plan to return to Colony this season, join for the first time, or are simply a taxpayer who enjoys tennis on the Colony courts, to request a copy of the YMCA agreement, read it, and ask questions. And I hope that you are more successful than I am in getting answers. Thank you.
Next up, we have someone whose screen name is iPhone. iPhone user, you're now live. If you could give your name and speak.
Hi, this is Stuart Carr. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, Stuart Carr, CARR, 3 Crestwood Drive in Chatham Township. Couple of items. Number one, wanted to follow up on the planning board inquiries I had over the last couple of meetings, I think, about whether we're going to be getting the planning board meetings into the big room and getting those taped and YouTubed to put on the website for future consumption. Really no excuse not to do that now. Again, Chatham Borough does it. Other folks do it. We're now in the big room. Really no excuse not to. Following on that, right now, in order to get information for the planning board meetings, have to go and get jump drives from Mr. LeConte. As I requested at some recent meeting, is there a way to, or we should, be getting those jump drives onto the website so we don't have to go and again bring a jump drive, bring that information to the website so we don't have to go and get jump drives. And then related to that, and this is a kind of Mr. Alperowitz question, Committeeman Alperowitz question. Is there a way to get those meetings transcribed? I know a lot of other jurisdictions do that. There may be some cost to that, but if we could check on having that, so not only do we have a verbal, but also a written transcription of those items, that would be appreciated. And then more generally, as I requested a couple of meetings ago, getting more information onto the website, such as the last, say, 10 years of meetings on the planning board and the committee, which is not there now, what the cost would be for that, how to get that on the platform, et cetera, since you do have an updated platform. And then finally, with respect to this colony pool idea, or not idea, but this colony pool initiative, which I think is a good one overall, I was not aware of the fact that a colony pool advisory committee member was not involved in those initial negotiations. I understand, again, that confidentiality is key, but I think given the particulars of switching from a township-run venue to an outside management company, that would have been the time to bring at least someone from the Colony Pool Committee or Colony Pool Advisory Committee into the tent, so to speak. And obviously that's water under the bridge. But I think going forward, perhaps it would be incumbent upon the committee to engage someone from the Colony Pool Advisory Committee to be in meetings with the liaison, which I think is Councilwoman Ewald or Committeewoman Ewald, maybe somebody else now, but whomever is the current liaison, that whatever kind of meetings they have or she has or he has with the administrator and related to that concerning the colony pool activities in the summer, that someone from the colony advisory committee also be in all or most of those meetings. I think that would facilitate things. I know it's out of the ordinary a little bit, but given the fact you do go to a management company now in a totally different business model, I think that would be prudent for not only the colony pool members directly, but also the community at large. Thank you for your time on that and look forward to hearing responses on those items when you get to it. Thanks very much.
Okay, next up is Katie Warren.
Hi, good evening. Um, I'm calling in this evening about the Madison YMCA
Name and
contract.
street, please.
I'm so sorry. Katie Warren, Susan Drive, last name is Warren.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm also calling about the Colony Pool contract with the Madison YMCA. I had occasion to read it and I have to voice my concern. I will say I completely understand the appeal of the idea of having a really experienced manager. And I know that that would address maybe some concerns, but I fear this is a situation where somebody needed a Band-Aid and the doctor wants to amputate a limb, and it's really going to end up changing something in really fundamental ways. Um, that I don't know if if the ends going to accomplish the means. The means are going to accomplish the ends of keeping this a lovely town asset. My two biggest concerns are, well, one overall being that the contract seems to have almost no limits. Camper, like what I picture when I read the contract is that there's going to be just day camps everywhere and loudspeakers and chaos, and you'll feel like you're going to the gym or something instead of the relaxing, shady, quiet colony pool. So I would really hope, I know that not everything is ironed out yet. I would really hope there would be efforts made to keep this what it is for the residents, including possibly no structured camps after noontime, or no structured camps on the weekends. And my second and probably bigger concern is the potential of Y members getting day passes, limiting capacity enjoyment of the residents. And I know there's language in the contract that says uh, the enjoyment of the members won't be substantially interfered with, but I cannot see how that would not happen if there's not really strict limits put on things like um, day passes for Y members. And I would really like to see a limit such as that doesn't happen on the weekends, so this can be fully enjoyed by the tax-paying residents of Chatham Township. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Jessica Romeo.
Hi, Jessica Romeo, Pine Street. There's an agenda item to authorize the Chatham Township Environmental Commission to apply for a grant, and I just wanted to thank you. Our natural resources inventory, the NRI, was last dated and updated in 2013. They should be updated every 10 years. Why is this important? Because an updated NRI is a vital piece of information that informs land use planning. It enables us to identify, protect, and manage critical environmental assets like water sources, tree covered areas, wildlife habitats. But really importantly, it also acts as a foundational tool for updating master plans, strengthening zoning regulations, and mitigating climate risks. It also guides sustainable development and can better help guide preservation. As you guys know, our master plan is due for an update in 2027, so this is really timely. So I just, again, wanted to thank you for putting that on the agenda tonight. And I had a question about summer employment opportunities at Colony Pool, wondering when kids who've worked there in the past would be hearing about summer employment, because they're at the point now where they have to figure out what they're doing for the summer. Thanks.
Okay, and that's it for raised hands.
Okay, we'd like to invite any members of the public or special guests to come up to the microphone if they have something to say.
It's on. Thank you for your assistance, Mr. Levante. Mark Lois, Gates Avenue. I'm just here to also speak about the Colony Pool resolutions that were passed in the last meeting. Really just about the method of how it was done. And just for the benefit of whoever might be listening to this, the resolutions were not, or the resolution was not on the agenda. And so it was added to the agenda. And of course, that's completely allowable. within OPMA, and there are certain technical ways that that's controlled. And but the spirit of it, the intent of it, the language of it is that the agenda as it is known should be published. And we've long held in this township at least 48 hours in advance. If you know something's going on, it should be on the agenda. And I've talked about it for 3 years now, about making sure that all the documents that we have, like for instance, for this workshop meeting, you have reports and all types of things that are available to you that are not online. So there's no way for a member of the public to meaningfully participate in your meeting tonight, to even follow along, to know what you're even looking at. I've been talking about that for 3 years. So that's not an oversight. That's a choice of this committee to exclude that and to not have that kind of information. But to not even have the resolution that you're going to vote on posted even the day of, that resolution was extensively long. It was negotiated over months, as was said in the meeting. It was something that had an immediate press release to follow within very short order. The committee here was clearly uncomfortable passing that in short order at the meeting. There was hesitation that could be read easily by any audience. The pathos here wasn't great. And so the responsibility is over the whole committee, but really the responsibility for what's on the agenda in our form of government falls to our mayor. Mm-hmm. And the mayor is the chair of the meeting. And so really, if there's got to be someone who takes the majority of responsibility for passing something so quickly like that, it has to be our mayor and our new mayor, Roland. So congratulations on that. But in my view, this is not a great start to the year. It certainly doesn't fit into an openness, a transparency, or into the spirit of what OPMA requires, or even what the history of our township is. Speaking of the history of our township, when there's zoning or something that impacts planning that's critical and needs to be kept somewhat confidential, often the planning board chair will be pulled in. Or we have a history here, it's something with affordable housing, we pull the open space chair in. And then that way it can be kept somewhat confidential, but still have some input. To make a change this large that impacts what the Colony Pool Advisory Committee was formed to do, which is to give input based on not only the programming and activities and events in the calendar, but also the promotion of the club. So it seems a little preposterous to think that they couldn't have been. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lowitz. If I could just give a little bit of a different lens, there was nothing intentional or nefarious about keeping this off of the agenda. This was a very important contract negotiation, which is a confidential process. We worked tirelessly to try to get this done as soon as we possibly could, knowing that based on the timing, we were at the beginning of the year. There's a lot of planning to be done. It's a transition to a new management. So when we were able to finalize some of those details at the last minute, rather than waiting another several weeks or possibly 2 more meetings, we decided to put it on the agenda so that we could get started because we knew it was happening and we have been working with people. So there was nothing intentional about keeping it a secret. It was, we were able to finalize those last few details before the meeting. So we added it to the agenda in the essence of moving forward and not losing more weeks where young people want to finalize their summer work plans and getting in touch with Rosewood. So if we did delay it by several weeks, we wanted to avoid that. So that was the approach that we took to add it to the agenda as soon as we knew that we were substantially complete with the contract.
I'll just add a little bit too. I mean, not just the process and everything, but the other concerns that were expressed. I think collectively, we all agree that the treasure of what Colony Pool is to remain intact. We look at this as a partnership with the Y. And actually in a large response to the complaints that we had about management over the last several years, over and over and over again. This is a 1-year agreement. That's all this is. If members of the public feel that the spirit of Colony Pool has degraded or changed, I think we welcome comments throughout the course of the year so that we can take corrective actions. And I think that this is the beginning, not the end of a partnership. This is, we welcome these kinds of comments and feedback, and I think it's refreshing to have conversations in a public forum to hear about them too. So I think we welcome these comments, but I think we're all looking at this as a very positive step in actually direct response to a lot of complaints that have been lodged over the last several years.
Okay. Any other comments, Mr. LaConte?
We don't have any other answers.
Okay, then we can close this hearing of citizens and we can move on to the reports. Mr. Shalati, if you would mind.
Yes, so under administration, a couple items for legislation to consider over the next meeting or two. First item is a resolution affecting sale of property. The property in question here is the town-owned land over on River Road, part of 482-490 River Road. The developer, that's part of an affordable housing development project from our third round a number of years ago. It's moving along. The developer has obtained or has finalized obtaining financing through NJHMFA. And so now we are just effectuating those last final details. We still own that land, and we need to transfer ownership of the land in order for him to start the work. So these are all in keeping with previously authorized developers agreements that have existed in place for 482-490 for the group homes that will be coming there. So Connie, if there's anything you want to add on that.
Yeah, this is consistent with the affordable housing agreements that you've authorized. No terms or conditions are changing. It's just authorizing the sale of property.
Any questions or concerns? Okay, moving on. Next item is award of contract to lead-based paint inspections. As we've talked about at workshop meetings, we had to update our ordinances to create a program by which lead-based paint inspections occur in the municipality. And that's to comply with state statute that's happening everywhere in the state of New Jersey. Somebody needs to go ahead and do those inspections. We can hire employees to do them, or we can contract out for a firm that specializes in this and does them a lot more efficiently, has the staffing, the resources to do all of this. So I'd be recommending, there's a proposal that was included in your agenda packet. Oh, thank you. Yeah, there was a presentation, I'm sorry, there was a proposal included in your agenda packet for a firm that has done similar work in area municipalities, and it would essentially come at no cost to us. So next meeting, we'll be adopting the ordinance that was introduced at the last meeting, and I'd like to concurrently have this resolution on the agenda to move forward with awarding that contract to the firm. Any questions or concerns there? Okay, thank you. There's a resolution to accept the resignation of an employee. You should have all received that letter.
Yes.
And then there will be follow-on resolution to appoint an employee, hopefully have somebody there to backfill that position. We've been interviewing and considering applicants, and I think we've got somebody for that. So originally we were looking at a part-time. If you recall, we were talking about a part-time addition to help out, but that now is going to be the priority to backfill that full-time position that's now going to be vacant. So that's what this refers to. But we will also have another resolution to appoint another employee in DPW. They did find an employee to backfill an upcoming vacancy. Any questions on those? Okay. And then finally, the resolution to authorize the Environmental Commission to apply for a grant to hopefully use those funds to prepare an NRI, an updated NRI. Any questions on any of those? Okay. Under discussion and action, before we get to that, I just did want to provide an update on the mobile app. It's been progressing nicely. We've pretty much, my assistant and I have been completing the template and the documentation that they require to populate it. We are making one more change. One of the delays, last delay is a change to our website in order to make, because what happens on our website appears also on the app. So there's something that we're doing on our website to create a self-service portal, which shows all of the different things that residents can do on their own, whether it's obtaining a police report or requesting overnight parking or dog licensing. So we're creating a one-stop shop on our website. Once that's complete, that's the last piece of the puzzle for the app, and then all that stuff can go to the company and hopefully have that rolled out soon. All right.
Would
yes.
we be able to get a list of the content and functionality or something to get an appreciation in draft form?
Yeah.
What we're gonna.
Yeah, what'll be on the website. Yeah, and one of the things that we did also is we looked at 3 other municipalities' apps and to try to follow what they're doing as far as because you create these applets, we have like 20, we just have a whole bunch of them, but you also don't want to overwhelm residents with people. So trying to create some of the most commonly used things. One of them would be one of the easiest things is just news and alerts, places for people to find out what's going on, how to sign up, our calendar of events. That's another one. We're putting a directory of all the contact information for the different offices and departments, a page for the mayor and committee so people can find the agendas and ordinances and resolutions. So we're trying to limit it to just 10 things on there, and that's why we're creating the self-service page, because that would just have rather than having 5 different itemized things, it would just be, okay, here's some self-service options, and then they can go to that for everything else.
So I know
But I'll forward all that to you.
some of the other municipalities require to log in order to store information so that they can subscribe to specific information that's tailored to them rather than just general news and alerts. Are we planning that process too?
We haven't gotten there yet with the company. Right now, we're just working out, sending them the templates and the logos and the graphics and all that. That'll be next, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, I will. I'll send you guys. What the spreadsheet of the applets that we'll have on there, and welcome your feedback.
Thank you.
The next item under administration, we put that sidewalk snow removal. Mayor, I'll turn that over to you if you want me to open that up, or if you want to open up the conversation.
No, I think there's just been confusion over whether or not there is an existing ordinance over clearing sidewalks. And there is, but it only relates to commercial properties. So there is not an ordinance on our books related to residential properties. I know that this storm, what's it called, Winter Storm Fern, has been a challenge. And typical temperatures for this time of year are 40 degrees. We're at 14. I tried to go out on Saturday and shovel through some spots in town that have not been shoveled for whatever reason, whether it's a rental property and the landlord hasn't done it and there's no one living there, or if it's an elderly or disabled resident. But I tried to go out there, I had a shovel, I had a garden tool, and I tried to get through. There's so many layers of ice and snow. And unfortunately, if the walk wasn't shoveled, it's really hard right now. I just encourage people going forward, if there's any dangerous situations, hopefully in the next week, the temperatures will rise and we'll be able to get, walkways cleared. But the question on ordinances, I hope I was able to clarify that. And again, if there's any need for any support, please give us a call. I mentioned that to someone. I was sitting next to someone and they said, if you have, elderly parents or someone, needs help shoveling. And she said, oh, my parents would never, ever call or ask for help. So I think, if you have the bandwidth, the wherewithal, and you see a neighbor, I know it's hard at this point, we can't really get through the ice, but going forward, if you can help and chip in and shovel someone's walk, they think they may not be able to do it, then I would, appreciate that.
So I was a little confused because I
Yeah.
read those ordinances that you sent and I didn't see what made them, like they read as residential as well to me. What makes them commercial?
So we provided copies of ordinances from other municipalities.
That's
That,
ours,
this
from
is ours.
2003 and then
Ours,
2013.
Those were drafts that were
those
considered.
were just drafts.
Oh, they were never-
Yeah, they were never adopted.
Oh,
Those were-
Oh.
Yeah, those were, by the way, we have these, for workshop meetings, we have these omnidirectional
I know,
microphones.
but I'm getting feedback that you're not being.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah, so that may not be the microphones, it's I have to check the audio board, but my point is, for workshop meetings, we don't turn them on, they're on. So they should capture all of us regardless of this being on or off. So I'll have to check it's the individual regular meeting that we turn these on and off, so that's why we have these for here, so I'll work with Greg after the meeting and just see what's going on with the audio levels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so yeah, those were ordinances that were included with your agenda packet as drafts for consideration that had been considered in the past. Those are not our actual ordinances. Yeah,
Because there's no number behind it.
yeah. Those are just, I guess, over the years,
So what-
this topic has come up again and again. But as the mayor said, we do have in our ordinance under sidewalks, there's a section that talks about sidewalk maintenance, but it does not address clear, that's more of like, if somebody put a trash can there or weeds or some actual maintenance having to do some impediment on the sidewalk does not deal with the snow specifically. But then there's another section in our ordinance under the sidewalk maintenance that does deal with snow removal, but it does not apply to single family type residential properties.
So somebody maybe educate me, why is this not, I mean, I can understand elderly, I can understand hardships, I can understand all that stuff. But the ice is there because of the super cold, and had everything been shoveled when it snowed or within a certain period of time, there wouldn't be ice. So why is this not an ordinance? Why are we not talking about like the pros and cons of actually creating a law in order to do, so I'm just a little confused. It's like, or why has it been denied in the past?
So the last time this came up, the committee opted not to adopt the ordinance because at the time, none of the committee members owned properties that had sidewalks. And they didn't want to adopt an ordinance that would apply to other people, but not to them. And there's also the concern about the proverbial little old lady that can't shovel a roadblock, which
Yeah, I
Could
mean, I
also make
think
his
I
neighbors
understand
more
that. I think I'm still just trying to understand.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the pushback, or from my interpretation of the pushback, happens to be probably about safe routes to schools. And within sort of a certain area of schools, maybe that should be considered or something along those lines. And I can understand applying for hardships, and people have vacation properties, they might not even live there during the winter time and all that stuff. There's all those kinds of questions. But I'm just still perplexed as to why it's just outright not a law at all. That's all.
the two times that this has come up in the time I've been here, those were the reasons why the committees have opted not to adopt it. But you may feel differently, and it's up to the current committee to decide that if you want to move forward with this.
I mean, we could always have discussions again. From my perspective, I like to see, especially for something that's gonna be so impactful and that is hard to enforce. Because we can't enforce selectively and,
I agree.
we're gonna divert the police from
Right.
what they're doing in order to door knock to tell people they gotta clear their sidewalk. So it's a big undertaking, and I think usually when you have something like that, you wanna see real commensurate interest in the community, and I only personally heard from one person. I think you might have heard from one or two. So
Yeah,
there's
no,
gonna
I-
be people on both sides of the argument. So yeah, I'm not against having a
Right.
conversation.
Well, I guess that's the point. I guess my plea is that if there are people out there that are listening to this, then please, by all means, raise your hands, speak up, come to the meetings, talk about it, because I agree. I don't have a sidewalk. There will be a future one at some point in front of my house, somewhere from circa 2014, will be cemented in 2036. But it doesn't personally affect me, but I have heard from a few residents, and I don't want to just kind of advocate on behalf of the entire town if there's not that kind of support. But I just don't want to shove it under the rug that, like, okay, it's been denied before. I just wanted to have some sort of conversation and get some perspective as to why it's not a law. So. Okay.
So I guess our last question, is that something
I
we're
mean,
doing now or?
Well, no, I don't feel compelled to. I think I think there are valid points. I agree in terms of enforceability is the biggest one. Okay, so even if it is a law, if somebody breaks the law, is it like, how do we know there's a sidewalk under there? How do we know that they haven't tried? All of those questions. But aside from a couple of people complaining about it right now, I think I'd like to hear more from residents, and in order for us to move the needle further, I guess. I would put the onus on others at this stage.
I mean, I think it's understandable. Sorry, my mother's trying to reach me and she gets past her, so I'm hoping it doesn't ring again. I think it's understandable because the concerns I did, see on social media, of course, were by the school. I don't know if you could limit something like that by the school.
Well, a radius within
Yeah.
sort of like a 1 mile radius or something where people are walking to schools. If you have a sidewalk, then
That's
perhaps,
probably most of our sidewalks are in the first place.
yeah.
But
Well, then there's bus stops and
I
then
was
there's
just gonna say,
there's
but
gonna be a
that-
million reasons,
yeah.
a million stories, so
Counter
that's what makes
argument
it,
side.
well, that's what makes it. Right.
So I'd like to hear it. Yes.
We can further discuss.
it is certainly a highly discussed issue in most municipalities. It's not, maybe on first blush, people would think it would be easily dealt with, and it's not. It's in residential areas for sure. It's because it is something that affects property owners directly, typically would result in fines.
Sure, it affects people in terms of, their ability to shovel and the cost of shoveling if they're not able to.
Cost,
do it.
right?
So I understand it, and just because there's a vocal minority right now, maybe, a vocal crowd, not a minority, that is expressing concern, I
Right.
guess I haven't heard both sides of it, that's all, so.
Right, and then, there may be an equal number of people who, don't want it being implemented. Yeah, so it's, and that's usually where you see inaction as a result.
Would you say that towns will fall on both sides of the fence in terms of passing through ordinances to address this and not leaving it kind of self-reliance and the goodness of community action to deal with it?
Civic minded.
For commercial or for
Residential.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. These neighboring towns have.
Well, that's what we included. I think you should have gotten in your packet,
Yeah.
at least 3. I mean, I don't know of many towns that don't have it. I don't want to say most towns have it. That's what we're just asking. I don't want to say most towns have it, but I'm not aware of towns that don't have such an ordinance.
That
Well,
don't
and
have an ordinance
more
to deal with
comparable
To deal with
residential.
residential shoveling of snow, really, but just putting the entire, a lot of times just have the burden of everything having to do with the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Adjacent to your property are the responsibility of that homeowner. A lot of towns have that codified for liability reasons, whether it's trees uprooting sidewalks, whether it's the snow shoveling. That tends to be the default, that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of too many towns that don't, so. This would be in keeping with that, and generally what happens is most towns won't put that on their police department, they'll put it on their property maintenance code official, zoning official to go out and enforce. And when that happens, it's usually like, here you go, here's a letter, or putting it on your door. You've got 24 hours or 12 hours within the stop of this to tend to it. And then if they don't do it, then there's a summons issued. So like a lot of things, notice of violation. There's argument that, hey, it's a safety issue, it's going straight to a violation. But you want to, again, if there's somebody who's elderly, maybe somebody's not even home, right? Like they're out of town on vacation. That is the responsibility to do it. So you're saying, hey, FYI, in case you don't know, you've got to tend to this. If there's an issue, like with most notices of violations on property maintenance, it's usually call the zoning official or whoever issued it. If you have any questions, I can't do this, or I'm out of town, or whatever. And then, if you want to say, hey, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, put it out on a forum if somebody's willing to help them. But there's a process there's flexibility in the process as well. So I know just in your agenda packet, we looked at just the municipalities right around us, Chatham Borough, Madison, and I think the other one that we included was it Long Hill
I
or?
must have missed something. I only saw ours. Maybe I missed an email? Was it in the big
Is it
packet?
not in the packet?
I included what you
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I included what you sent me.
Yeah.
How did I miss this?
I
I'm
think it
looking.
was the lead, maybe it was Long Hill and the other.
I thought I sent what you sent me.
So that actually bespeaks the question because, the borough is Main Street and a lot of sidewalks. Madison is Main Street and a lot of sidewalks.
Yeah.
If.
That's probably why we have
I mean,
Yeah.
is there even a sidewalk in Harding? I don't know, so if it's a more comparable, I think that's where the history comes from. Craig.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that these were, for lack of a better term, trails as opposed to sidewalks.
Correct.
But getting formal around, where density is higher. Is certainly where that is, so.
And also, a lot of the sidewalks, one maybe contributing factor as to why a lot of the sidewalks that we have in Chatham are also not on municipal roads,
Yes,
right? Like
they're county.
they're on
Yeah.
county roads as well. So that is, county has a policy that they say, like most counties, we only do deal with curb to curb. If you guys want sidewalks in your town, states even if you want sidewalks in your town, you can put them in a right of way, but then they're your responsibility or whoever's responsibility you want to delegate it, but they're not our responsibility. So that may have had something to do with progression of sidewalks.
So even if there was an ordinance in place that we adopted, just say for that, and it's a county road, it wouldn't apply to that.
No, it would apply to it. It would apply to everybody in the jurisdiction of town. If you said town-wide, right? If you wanted to name certain roads, that's a different story, but it would apply everywhere. It's just, who's adjacent to that sidewalk. Well, like Shunpike, I don't think had, there's parts of Shunpike that didn't have sidewalks up until fairly recently, right?
They're planning to put them in at some point, but there's parts of Shunpike that are not residential, there's school property and all that kind of stuff too, that's not plowed. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of places where there's not an actual sidewalk and it's like kind of gravel that probably shouldn't be included, I would think, so. Kind of hard to shovel gravel. But.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'll double check, but yeah, Chatham Borough, Long Hill, and Madison, all had snow removal ordinances. But they weren't in your packet, I apologize, they're supposed to be all of them.
Long Hill, I wouldn't consider Long Hill to have a downtown.
No.
It's probably they
No.
have a town.
Well, they just have.
Well, they have shopping
County
centers.
resident.
Right near their municipal. No, yeah, it's pretty sizable shopping.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
But I don't think anyone questions the wisdom of wanting to have safe walkways, right? I think we had a rather unusual storm where we had significant snow accumulation and bouts of warmer weather where the snow melted. The trouble is we had sub-freezing temperatures overnight and really no place for the melted snow to go. So you end up with refreezing on paved surfaces, whether it be concrete or driveways. So I think there was an added challenge, particularly to this snowstorm or snowstorms. I do think it merits having a discussion about the possibility of introducing an ordinance to address it. I think ultimately what we're going for is how do we maintain safe walkways, whether it's through law or through some other means, or perhaps a combination of the two. At the end of the day, I don't know if this is too Truman Show-esque thinking, but you've made a fleeting reference to to the Scouts, other civic organizations. I don't know. Maybe we put together a needs list of addresses and do a call to arms for able-bodied individuals with equipment and shovels, and maybe we have neighborhood associations as well. I know that. we can break it up in terms of that. Probably think about ways to deploy at least section by section, particularly the ones where schools are probably heavy pedestrian trafficked areas. Hit those first with some sort of plan. That could be bolstered with an ordinance. I'm not sure, but I do share Committee Woman Ewald's concern about enforceability or selected enforceability. Nevertheless, I think it merits discussion. I think we certainly want to have safe walkways. I think we want to encourage our children to walk to school in a safe way. Anyone who's done drop off knows the complete nightmare of backed up cars. Any way we can foster walking to school in a safe way, I think everyone can embrace that. I think it merits further discussion. Yeah, so that's all I've got to say on that.
So I guess I might suggest if we can, collect the comparable ordinances, which I know you sent, think about it. Now we've had a discussion, so residents have an opportunity to listen in and then to chime in, and maybe we bring it up in next month's workshop. And
Okay.
if that makes sense, I don't think we have to make a decision tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there's a second hearing in citizens tonight if people are speaking, but I'd encourage others to come forward at future meetings and not just when, it's probably not gonna happen overnight. So the weather will turn warmer and then people forget about it. So I would kind of mark it as your point of view now, and hopefully we'll have a point of view for end of year, something like that.
Okay. Notice. All right. Anything else under admin? Okay. Moving on, clerk received the report. Any questions there? Okay, construction building. Just a note that we've got a resolution to refund a permit fee overpayment. And the report was concluded. Any questions there?
I'm ready to, but
And a refund on an overpermit.
right. Okay.
Permit fee.
yeah, no.
I do have a question, if you don't mind. At the end of the report, it is noted that complaint investigations and tree removal permit activity are not reflected, but there have been a couple of circumstances recently that have been noticed by neighbors and others regarding some building lots where there has been significant tree and enforcement. Is that something we can add or talk about or have a report of what is the compliance level of particularly tree permits within the township? I don't want to add anything to the construction office where they're losing bodies. Hopefully they'll get them back real quick here. But I think it is important because particularly over on some specific locations over by Pine and over by Susan and some others. I do have a question on, are we complying? Are we not complying? Can we look into that?
Yeah, I could just more, or I could talk to you.
Yes.
Discuss. You want to discuss now briefly, or you and I can chat later?
Well,
just so I know what is it you're looking for as far as the data points.
So what I'm looking for is compliance of. There's been a number of lots that have been. I cite the ones a year or two ago on River Road where he was up the hill and he took everything out and walked it down.
Yeah.
Where are we with settlement there? There is a construction project starting to occur over on Pine Street, which some people have done some counts on.
I counted about 29 trees.
And so it's not that big a lot. Over on Susan, I actually even looked at one that looked funny to me, and I looked into the permit for perhaps 7 trees, and there was certainly significantly more than those number of stumps. And so I would ask if there's a way to see what the current compliance is.
But when you say compliant, meaning
the compliance with permits. Number one, do they have the permit? Right. And what does the permit say, and is it being complied to? And then,
so we would only know if there's to kind of play out the process.
Sure.
If somebody just removed trees without a permit, we wouldn't know about it until
somebody came in.
Yeah, somebody complained. So that data point is just that we can only at this point report on permits obtained.
Okay.
And then maybe let's say, I'm just trying to play it out. As I said, if you want, we can talk about it now, or separately, and I can try to help to craft the right report for you.
Yeah, that's fine. We can
Do
talk
that.
about it
Okay.
afterwards. Yeah, but I do think it's something that needs discussion.
Yeah, but if there are any complaints about those, I'm not really hearing them. Nobody's,
Okay.
so if residents are seeing those, if the environmental committee, if somebody, they're not
Yeah.
coming to me. So I can't do my job to follow up on those and.
No, understood.
And then, after.
Oh, it's not
there's,
accusation. It's how do we notice this? Or is it
Yeah.
just a matter of residents noticing and raising their hand?
Yeah, that's.
If that's the case, then I
It's
think there
only
are
out
groups within
impact.
town that would raise their hand on what they're,
But-
making it easy for them to raise their hand.
I think one of the bigger issues though, and I don't know how to address this either, is that's usually done after the fact, right?
Right.
The damage is already done.
Well, that's why it's so
So
important
it-
specifically.
So I think that's the bigger question of like, is that considered, has that been approved by the planning board? Does all the trees and all that stuff, is that part of the process of the approval process to begin with? I don't know, so.
Well, there's been, over the last couple of years, actually, there's been discussion on updating of tree ordinance, again, close to the model ordinance by the state. Even that's a moving target.
Which we got approved for though, that one we,
Okay.
the state approved ours, I recall we did, we sent that over to them to see if there were any changes that needed to be made to be in compliance, and they said ours is in compliance.
Yes, but I think it's a little further than that, because there's a significantly more work happening, for example, with the environmental commission.
But I just remember in terms of this model ordinance.
Yeah.
So we were in compliance.
So
with
I
the state.
think this is all kind of related, and it also comes all the way down to planning and everything else. What kind of community do we want to maintain, right? If we want to get to the maximum tree removal of every property, because we can maximize footprints. So this is a bigger piece. And something I think we should really start digging our teeth into a little bit more, because some of them are becoming egregious type of approaches to some of these properties. So.
Yeah, and I would suggest that, even discussions about whether or not to encourage people to raise violations or concerns after the fact. Those could be worthy if that's the direction you want to go in, because there are penalties, and if you want to discourage that from happening in the future, that's the way you do it.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I just think that part of it is. Yes, the voices should be raised. There's no doubt about it, but I think that and maybe this was in the plan, like this one particular property, this was already approved and it was done.
Yeah,
And
right,
it's case,
right.
We have no idea.
Right,
But I think there is genuine concern, and it's usually kind of noticed, like I said, after the fact.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
People have contacted the officials in progress, when they have concerns, and we will send out construction officials, we have sent out police to stop,
Yeah,
work that we think is not in accordance with the permits that are provided. So I certainly would encourage, if somebody's worried that there's massive clear cutting.
So please let me know, if I don't hear about those, I know we had the incident on River Road, was it last year or 2 years ago? And as soon as that, we had police, construction, and engineering responded, but if I don't know about these, but then once we issue the citation, there's summons, at that point, it's in the court, and then it's still the prosecutor, so Mr. Daniels may not be aware of what's progressed from there once it's in that case. So I don't, I'll work on getting the data points, we'll talk about, so I can get your report, what it is exactly to put in that report, so I could have, go up there.
Number one, have there been, except the one on River Road, have there been fines assessed? And what have those been? Have they been to the ordinance? Have they been to the extreme of the ordinance, or the easy part? Where are we with that, and how in review of the tree ordinance itself, right? What do we want to have as a community? From the planning standpoint, and is it the tree ordinance as it stands sufficient to protect what we're looking to protect from the standpoint of the character of the community? So, it's a broad question for sure.
Comes up though every year. We've been talking about that, and I think every year we've kind of said that it has
Right.
to some degree. You know, it does meet that. It's not that it's very permissive, it's actually a very restrictive ordinance. Right, because we talked about it, I think, last year, and we had a subcommittee meeting on it, and I recall that the feeling was
Well, there were
that,
any changes, however, to what was existing. Because I remember that, you know, we had John engaged to look at it. And rather than just simply complying to the state model. Is that satisfactory to us or not? I don't know
I
that.
think ours is more restrictive than the state.
Yeah.
That was, so.
Yes. Okay,
So
well,
it's not
we can
just-
talk about some of those specifics
Okay.
when we get, because I would like to follow that. There is expressed interest that this is a kind of a little bit too far. The pendulum is swung from the tree. So.
Yeah, but again, the ordinance, where it's swinging is not because the ordinance compliance with the ordinance is.
Well, then it comes down to the
Right? It's
report
because
of
again-
what is being complied. That's what I'm asking
Yeah.
for. You know, are we actually following up on any of this? Okay, if it doesn't meet the ordinance, then why is it not then followed up?
But let's say in the case of the trees have been removed, right?
Yes,
You follow up after them, you can't replant the trees, they've already been removed, right? Like, we're not out there while the trees are being removed, right? They cut-
no, I understand that.
So that's
I understand that.
that's only. It's only the
However,
compliance.
to your point of compliance, there is a penalty for non-compliance. And is
Yes.
that happening? I don't know that that's happening either, to give a negative.
Until it's there.
But until we're aware
Right.
of it, right? And then we find, you know, then we issue the summons, that's the process. So once it happens, there's, in our mind, it's full compliance unless we're aware of other.
Well, all these properties, by and large, all do have either a replacement factor, you know, how are those things followed up? Right, even for the major developments, you know, the enclave, okay, there's,
Yeah,
I remember 300 some odd trees that are, they're followed up, and yes, well, that's the engineer, and he actually goes out.
yeah, so it's part of the
trees.
planning.
Right.
board or
Yeah,
zoning
so,
board.
but this is to me, and to neighbors I've had discussions with around these properties, this is an ongoing issue. And so I want to revisit that specific to, okay, where we are in compliance, that's the baseline, right? Are we complying? And the mechanisms that are addressed after that it's learned. I mean, are we actually applying the fines? Are we actually, you know, why is this continuing?
Yeah, well, we just issue the summons and then the
Right.
court would
Sure.
issue the fine.
And collect the
And collect
fine.
the fine, and at that point, you know, we don't know what's necessarily, you know, because Jack is not involved in that, he just issues
Right.
the summons.
It's outside of.
And then it goes to the court.
No, I understand that's out of control, but how does this get beyond, right? Is there a mechanism to keep it from happening rather than being punitive after the fact? Is there a way to actually make sure people comply?
If you can tell me how we can stop people from
Right.
speeding.
I'm with
You know,
you.
it's kind of the same thing.
No, I understand.
I think to Tiana's point.
Yeah.
If you start enforcing, if people complain and we
Yes.
enforce, then it's a deterrent.
Yeah, that's my point. That's
Right.
We don't have an audit process.
But also-
That's
right.
the basic.
I'm not sure,
I know what
I'm not sure if, and we can talk more,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure if, pulling data with regard to compliance is going to show you anything other than who's telling on who.
Okay.
There's
Because
plenty of people
that's-
doing that.
That, because
Excuse
that,
me, Greg?
There's plenty of people doing that. Whenever a tree comes down in this town, there are plenty of neighbors that are, you know, calling to see if there's a permit. So
Yes.
a tree doesn't follow this town without someone getting marked on.
Well, that's part of my point. But in these, there are some really egregious cases that are current. And so, okay.
Well, that's the other discussion we've had is,
Yeah.
you know, we grant permits because they get somebody to come and say that the tree is diseased.
Yes, and that's
Right.
part of the ordinance because,
Yeah.
and is that then a conflict because you get that approval from somebody that has a certificate that's actually taking the trees down?
Right.
But then there's
a conflict of interest.
Yeah, there's an absolute conflict there. Yeah, of course it's, I mean, we look at the ones on, what is it, Johnson or wherever it was, where he's taking them all out back of the oaks. And so, this is something that I would like to, at least investigate a little bit more to get a better handle.
my point was. Perhaps it's more an understanding of process
Yes.
as opposed to compliance. Because,
Yes.
you know, because compliance is, more a matter of who's noticing and who's, you know, falling, because
Mhm.
it's, you know, I don't know of a way for, other than through
Go with
planning
city.
board applications
Mhm.
and follow-up permitting that happens.
Mhm.
You know, there's just not gonna be a way from the municipality to regulate that affirmatively.
There's
As
only
opposed-
one I know where, when I started, was on, actually, I think it was off of Myersville or behind that, there's that gentleman who, there was an application, trees were supposed to be replanted, whatever, we follow up with that, we like
Mhm.
kept going through the court process, we even at one point, he came, I think, before one of the boards, because he wanted something to do with his property, and we made that, I think we raised that to the board and said, hey, he still hasn't complied with this. So, you know, I know John went back and forth with them, you know, when it comes to our attention, we do try to use every lever that we can to compel compliance ultimately, whether it's the replanting or the fees. But again, unless it comes to our attention, we.
I do think the environmental commission maybe can get roped into this too, because they have specific points of view on how. And whether or not that's the viable choice, but they have specific recommendations on how. The process can be improved, prior to the tear downs, I guess. And I think that's part of the discussion. I'd encourage us to rope them into this, because they have a much more higher risk, a very vested interest in it than higher.
Yeah, I'll set up a meeting, Deputy Mayor, if you want, I'll set up a meeting, a construction official or engineer.
Great, okay, we can, thank you.
Yeah. Engineering, resolution to award a contract, that is for the Hillside Avenue drainage improvements, that's for actually, it's not Hillside Avenue, it's the Hillside Trail drainage improvements, that's the one that we had that interlocal agreement with the county on, to address the runoff and the, sort of wash out of that trail. Any questions there?
I mean, that's funded through, that's one through grant money, or that's Morris County carrying that whole?
The county is handling that one, we took the lead agency role on it to advertise, bid, and award and oversee.
Great.
That's the one, Tina, right? You
Yes,
that one.
correct.
I just hope that there's a couple things that the bidder has to do before, hopefully the 24th, before we award. So if they've
Okay.
checked off all those boxes, then we'll have a resolution. Any questions on the report? Okay. Finance, annually, the cap bank ordinance. And an emergency temporary budget appropriation. For those of you that are not familiar, because at the beginning of the year, you do a temporary budget. And that one by state law there's a formula, it's 26.25% of the previous year. But it doesn't always correlate to 26.25 in every department. So there's the potential shortfalls. So we amend the temporary budget until we adopt the full budget. So that's what this emergency temporary budget appropriation is for. Our CFO identified some potential shortfalls and wants to amend the temporary budget to make sure that we're good until we adopt the budget. Any questions? Okay. Police, no action items, just a report. Anything there?
Just an observation that the motor vehicle stops and summonses were significantly higher year over year. I just, not that I'm surprised by it, the way people drive. And nor am I surprised by, the excellent work that our police department does. I think it's just an observation. I just was surprised to see the size increase of the numbers of that, even whether it has to do with distracted driving or anything else. So anyone listening, please drive carefully.
Public Works, we received a leaf composting grant from the state, which, typically we have to have a resolution to accept those grant funds. So that's what's being considered. However, there may be some, we are working on some implementation issues with the compost facility. John Rushki, our engineer, our DPW director, our plant manager. There are more stringent requirements coming down like from the state, from the DEP, which are making facilities like ours, these sort of small town facilities, adding a lot more cumbersome regulations and things to deal with stormwater runoff and how those affect things being covered, not covered, where's drainage, where are they going? So we are evaluating the whole entire compost facility operations as a result of that, develop a plan to be in compliance with those regulations. So we're receiving this grant. We may pivot on how we use that in order to make sure that we are in compliance with the new regulations.
You have the flexibility to use it for, the soft as opposed to hardware type of spend, rather than equipment for grinding up leaves, you can spend it on compliance.
We may be able to, depending on the
Okay,
plan, yeah, so that's what we're working on, where I wanted to make sure that we also give you a full, like, before, depending on what the plan
Mhm.
outcome is,
Mhm.
we have enough details for you to review financials and say, okay, if we continue doing what we're doing, this is what the cost is, if we pivot to this model, it's gonna
Mhm.
cost like this, or if we go to this model, it'll cost that, and, fully evaluate, so, Rich Young's doing a good job with that. He's putting all those numbers together. We're going back a couple of years to make sure we capture everything, all the costs associated with this. And what it might cost to either outsource that versus pivot and make the improvements ourselves to be in compliance.
Is the new regulation or the new compliance requirements putting the actual compost facility in danger, for lack of a better term?
No, we think we can still continue it. It's
Okay.
just how we process the materials.
Okay.
Or you may decide that, yeah, it is something that, at some point, because these regulations just keep getting more and more difficult.
Understood.
And it's just, you keep pouring more and more money into it, and so evaluate even just things that we're looking at, like we do mulch delivery over there.
Mhm.
However, how much is it costing us to provide that mulch delivery service for the 70 people that take advantage of it? Versus if we were to pivot and do something else. So those are all the things that we're trying to consider. Rich's report's included, and we also have an annual snow and ice report that's included, which I think both are important to highlight for the residents in terms of the spend, right? Like, it's quite a bit of effort and money when we're dealing with cold snaps and snowstorms like we've been dealing. This was a heavier year, so you've got a report on overtime, salt, brine, all those costs that are associated with what we do. Any questions, concerns?
A lot of salt and a lot of brine,
Yeah.
235 ton, I did math on my calculator, 235 tons of salt and 2,800 gallons of brine in 1 month.
And when things like this happen too, there's shortages around the state, these, not many people realize how much public works departments start panicking when things like this happen. We try to build up our surplus as well and build up our dome. But then you start running into supply chain issues. A lot of municipalities need it. DOT, private parking lots, everybody's using it. It puts quite a strain on the infrastructure. And so our DPW just is really fantastic in how they handle it. Tax collector, we have a resolution to refund an overpayment of taxes. And nothing too unusual about that. Questions? Finally, tax assessor, report from the tax assessor was included. We also did push an update on social media and on our website about the tax reval. It's finally done. So the link to the page that includes locations is now being updated with a spreadsheet. So the reval company is out there. We've got the inspectors that are out there. The PD knows who they are. So they're focusing really on the multi-unit complexes right now because of the snow. It's easier to just deal with those in mass rather than trying to trudge through the snow into larger, some of the more spread out parts of the community.
I suspect that a really big part of I mean, like everything else on our website, but that'll be on the app as well too, when that actually rolls out, whenever that is too, which is good timing.
Okay,
Any questions there? Okay, that's
Alright.
it for resolutions and agenda items.
all right, thank you very much. If there's no further questions or discussion, Mr. LeConte, can we move on to the second hearing of citizens, please?
Sure, we have one hand raised.
Hey, this is hi guys, this is Jessica Romeo again from Pine Street. I just wanted to comment on a couple things discussed. One is the snow removal ordinance. I do hope that there's encouragement for residents to speak up on whichever way they lean and feel about it. I walk a lot in town. I walk a lot in the morning and I see kids walking to school. And the lack of care of the sidewalks is really concerning. I've had to walk in the middle of the street on Southern Boulevard, on Lafayette Avenue. I've seen little fourth and fifth graders doing the same. It's really scary. It's really dangerous. I think a serious discussion should be had. And just because in the past the answer was we don't want to do this in our community, it doesn't mean that's the answer still. So that's one thing. The other thing is the trees. I sent you a bunch of photos from Pine Street. I counted over 30 trees removed last week on a property where a builder is doing a knockdown and a rebuild. I know you guys are putting together this app. I think there might be a great feature. You probably have it happening, but where you say, got a concern, people can push a button and report something. I think one of the big issues is people don't know how to report stuff. The Environmental Commission's been working really hard on reviewing our existing tree ordinance and tightening it up, making it in some way easier for residents to follow. And we do really look forward to presenting that to you guys in the near future. We've worked closely with Rutgers on it to make sure that best practices are involved. And I hope that when you do speak with somebody in engineering or construction, the Environmental Commission can be looped into this discussion on how to more closely regulate the clear cutting of properties. Thanks.
Stuart?
This is Stuart Carr. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Stuart Carr, CARR from 3 Crestwood Drive, Chatham Township. Once again, a couple things. Number one, reiterating that the two comment periods is a terrific thing. Glad that was brought back a couple of years ago. Number two, this whole workshop idea, having the public to be able to view that is terrific as well. So please continue to do that. Number three, I'm looking on my iPhone now and I'm seeing a transcript of the words that are coming out of people's mouths. I would suggest that be able to be transcribed and put that on the website so that people can not only have the video, but can also have a transcription that goes to my comment a minute ago. And then following on that comment a minute ago, I did make some comments, but I also was making requests for a comment, i.e. what is the status of the planning board change to having it taped and putting it out there? Please provide a status update on that. Number two, please provide a status update on where we are with putting more stuff on the website, specifically more historical, planning board, township committee, et cetera, and also backfilling those, whatever you call jump drive, those reports from the planning board so that, again, the public can have access to that without having to go and get a jump drive from Mr. LeConte. And then back, so I'd like to get some comment from the chair or whomever about the status of those things. And then finally, on the colony pool, same thing. The idea of having a colony pool advisory committee representative in direct contact with the liaison and the administrator and whomever else is dealing with the colony pool / Madison Y matters, I think over the next several months would be a prudent thing to do. And I'd like to kind of hear why that would not be a prudent thing to do and why you would not do that. So if we could address those couple of items, that would be appreciated. I was not being clear earlier when I was asking for a response or comment. I wasn't just making a comment. Thanks very much.
Hey, Stuart, thank you. I sent you an email within the past week or so I will circle back and follow up and answer Your other questions, the planning board, that is on the agenda for the next planning board to start talking about that. But I'll reach out to you this week.
Also, I think he asked about the Colony Advisory Committee. I don't think there's any intent, actually, I think the intent more, you can assist Stacy, is to engage them as much as possible to make this as smooth and as good a process as possible, to take advantage of what we've created here. You know, under contract negotiation, that was the hard part for all parties involved, not just us, but the Y as well. And so I think, Stacy, you can affirm that, right? That's the whole idea, is that the advisory committee is going to advise how to make this work.
Yeah, I
We've
mean,
set a skeleton, now put the meat on the bones.
well, and that's what, because I did speak to the advisory committee before.
Yes.
You know, the members, some of the members I was able to get through the day before when, you know, I had a sense that this might come on the agenda. And, yeah, I had explained that the Y, from our executive session discussions, that the Y was interested in, meeting with the advisory board and getting there, because they're eager to make this a success. For everybody. I mean, the only way they make it successful for them is to make it successful for you. So, and it is a Chatham Township asset. So it is fully our intent to make sure that our membership, which is largely our Chatham Township residents, are enjoying that pool. So some of these concerns and worries about, you know, camps overriding, there are limits in the contract in terms of, and there was discussion that the camps outside of work family would be brought in before the pool opens. So all of these things that were raised have been discussed, have been considered, and again, we didn't get into the nitty-gritty details of the contract, but the Y has expressed an interest, and we have mentioned to them repeatedly our interest in maintaining that experience for our members. So it's fully in intent to pursue that.
Sorry, man, I just to affirm, because committee woman will, I think you're being very nice, but I want to affirm, you did reach out to the advisory committee before the meeting, not just before the meeting, but days before the meeting.
No, because we weren't in a position to.
Well, not, I mean, it wasn't that day. Was
regarding this management, I had been
Yes,
speaking to them about different things. I gave them a heads up that I thought something was coming up, but I couldn't speak to them about any details. So it was the day before.
The day, that's what I mean, it was the day before, it wasn't the day of, it was
Right.
the day before. It was the day before, so you did reach out to them.
You know, this should be on the agenda, but we still had to work out some details right before.
So I just wanted to clear that up because it seems like there was misrepresentation
There
about
was
that
also a
fact.
follow-up conversation, one of the members of the advisory committee called me too, after you had that conversation, so I'll affirm that you did have that conversation prior to it actually being.
I think I reached 4 of them, I couldn't reach it.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify for, you know, the public and whoever is hearing the idea that maybe that did not happen, because it did in fact happen. And it's not as big of a change as some people are making out to be. I mean, we sent out an email to every member and only one person had a question. Nobody had concerns about this. So it's not as big of a deal as it may seem. It's actually it's a big deal in the positive aspects. It's not a big deal in the sense that it's just, instead of hiring a manager and assistant managers, it's a nonprofit that has a manager and assistant managers and experience in running the pool. So it's not much different than what's been going on. So there's a lot of sort of like what ifs, sky is falling scenarios, hypothetical scenarios, and we could come up with a hypothetical scenario of all the things that could go wrong, whether we were doing this or not. And so we just kind of need to keep this in mind, that this is nothing drastic. This is not a huge change. It can only benefit the community pool to make sure that it runs well. It addresses, as you said, community powers, addresses the concerns and the complaints that we've heard over the past couple of years to make sure that the pool experience is safe and fun.
Yeah, in terms of those immediate things that have to be done, I know those conversations, because we've been talking about them. So for example, the hiring, I know those conversations, and you and I had talked about that. The township would probably send the notice to those folks who had worked for the pool before, just to let them know, you know, there's a link, or
yeah, just as we sent out a
there.
press release and an email to all the members, when that information, you know, we did say when information is available, we'll let you know. the Y is working through it. They're inputting things into their HR systems, refining job descriptions, all these different things. Once that's ready and we've got things available to put out, we will put out notice to the lifeguards and staff that have worked previously if they want to reapply and be considered. And more details, the marketing, typically this is around the time when we would start having the brochure go out to homes soon. And it's the same thing. The marketing will include all of the information that people are curious about, but not much is changing. That's the important thing to remember. It's really not much is changing from the forward facing side of things, just in terms of the structure and the parameters of our pool.
I think we might be well advised to encourage a meeting between key folks at the Y and other parties from the township, whether it's advisory board, committee, or combination thereof, as soon as sensibly possible, in order to allow the Y to have a better understanding of what the concerns and desires might be, and get a better appreciation for what the history of the pool is. And they've already gotten that from us, but I think there would be another dimension added by folks who have been serving on the advisory board for a considerable amount of time. Because I do understand what you're saying. Whenever there's change there's a possibility for the thought to be, well, gee, how can it change for the worse? I think we went into this with the notion that we're going to change for the better, also understanding that, yes, there's a risk, that there's a risk inherently with any contract, any new partner, but I think we have a very community-minded partner who's expressed desire, certainly in the offset, to run things largely the way they are. But having said that, I understand they're just words from, it's telephones coming from them to us, to the public, but and also advisory boards. So I think, perhaps some direct dialogue would benefit all parties.
Yeah, it's just important to remember for everybody that's sort of, and there aren't that many people, again, that are overreacting or thinking that this is a big, we've only been 2 weeks from having authorized the agreement. So there just needs to be a little patience, right? It's like, we only authorized it 2 weeks ago. We only, I think, just recently finally exchanged signed copies of the agreements. There's, administrative things that need to happen. So, we got to do things in sequence and in order to make sure that, we've got our ducks in a row. So, we'll get there. It's just, that's also to kind of the mayor's point, is that this was something that was not tried to be hidden from the agenda. It was just moving so quickly and trying to get this done in time for the season to be open. And so, I understand a lot of people are kind of chomping at the bit or getting excited. It'll be okay. It will be okay.
Sorry, I want to slightly correct one word, because I think you said overreaction, and I think it's a natural reaction. I think that this is something that residents have been pouring a lot of heart and soul into. So I think we all understand where they're coming from. I think we have a valid counter argument, but I think we can all understand where they're coming from. And I just don't think it's necessarily an overreaction. That's all.
Oh, what I tell my kids, don't open the umbrella until it starts raining. And I think everybody was quick to open their umbrella, but it's heavy to carry around the umbrella if it's not raining. So that's to your point. Let's just ask for some patience. We're excited. We spent a lot of time, a lot of work. There has been a lot of communication, and we will continue that conversation. There's no secrets. There's no hiding. We're all here to be, working towards the same goal and the same success for Colony Pool. I've been a member many years. My kids work there. Nobody wants to see it become a chaotic, splash pad scene. So we appreciate everyone's input. And just let's all work together. How about on that note? Is there a motion to adjourn?
One more hand up.
Oh, we do. Oh, and then we have to close the hearing.
Erin?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Erin Burgo, Burgo, Candace Lane. I just wanted to provide a few updates, clarifications, if I may. I was told around 10 o'clock the night before the last committee meeting that that the township had entered into an agreement with the YMCA. Although I knew that at 10 o'clock at night, there's no way the public could have known that this topic was going to be discussed because it was never on the agenda. And I certainly couldn't call 100 people and tell them to tune into the meeting. I wanted to also just read, if I could, the response that I got in an email from the administrator this week. Bear with me for 1 second. We value the advisory committee's role and input, and we share the same goal, a well-run, safe, welcoming, and enjoyable season for members. As we move through the preseason timeline, we will continue to provide clear updates to the township and YMCA communications, including registration information and key operational details. Be on the lookout for emails from the township to the Colony Pool member distribution list on our website and Facebook. So that is what I got in response to the email that I sent, our committee sent, looking for confirmation to 12 different statements and asking 12 questions. In other words, we needed to just sit back and wait, and we'll find out when everybody else finds out. We have been excluded from this process. It happened behind closed doors. It wasn't on the agenda for the meeting. I just, even tonight, when I called in and I mentioned that we can't even book a band, because even our question that pertains to events wasn't answered. I'm sorry. I don't think this has been done fairly. I think that you need to really, I've read the contract. Other people have read the contract. We have valid concerns about the number of campers that may be at the pool. We already had issues with work family, and I think we're compounding this issue by bringing in more campers. We don't have enough facilities. We don't have the infrastructure to support any more campers. There are 4 toilets in the ladies' room. The locker rooms above the concession stand do not work. How can we bring in more campers? How can the facility support that? I just think there's a lot of people that have read this contract. We have valid concerns and they're not being addressed. And we're told to just wait, we'll find out when everyone else does. That's all.
Ordinance.
Okay. If there are no more questions and comments, then we can close the second hearing of citizens. Now, is there a motion to adjourn? Anyone?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.